Well, good morning to all, and we thank God for those who are here as our visiting guests, and hope that you will come back and continue worshiping the Lord with us and getting to know the Lord better, and hopefully getting to know us better, and that you end up loving both of us. Last week I neglected to turn my cell phone on to vibrate when I entered the building, and you might recall at the end of my sermon at 11:04, my phone ringer went off, and I didn't look to see who it was. I thought probably Libby or the spirit of Frank coming at me. But in case you're wondering, it was Walgreens just calling me to pick up a prescription. By the way, you know, another great benefit of cell phones, a lot of people don't know about, is that you can talk to yourself while you're driving, and people just think you're talking on the phone. And so I just talk away, whatever I think. We'll be studying, we're not back in Luke yet. After a little bit after Easter, we will get back in studying through some passages in the Gospel of Luke. We'll be way back in 2 Kings this morning as we talk about devoted disciples sharing their salvation with all their hearts. As you entered the building this morning, hopefully you received one of the gift bags, the Just Jesus gift bags. If you did not, they're on the tables, and we want everybody to take one on their way out and look through it and so on. Just Jesus is a new outreach ministry that we are launching starting next Sunday, but we wanted to let everybody know about it in more detail the week before. And then, of course, the next week is Easter. And the goal of the ministry is for all of us to send the light, the gospel light, the death, burial, the resurrection of Jesus, and allow God to use us to help other people come to know the Lord. And we truly want this area around the church, a mile every direction or more, to where we are known as the neighborhood family church, a place to bring your family and study and come to know Jesus better, and grow with Christians who are serious about one day being with the Lord. And so we encourage you to look through the materials, but also maybe might be something in those the bag you're going to want to share, hopefully with others, and want to encourage you to do that. I want to show a montage, kind of. We've already done some videos, 9-10 minute long videos, and we've taken just little clips from each to give you a little bit of an idea. We launched this YouTube site where people hopefully will start going in and studying the Bible with us. And I'm a little uncomfortable because my name is on the front of it and so on. And we certainly always know it. We want it to always be about Jesus. As we get rolling high, we'll probably present some of the lessons and so on. But anyway, I want to show a little bit of the clip of various parts of the YouTube broadcast that will come out before long in April. And also what the messages are going to be about. So if we could show the video. Hello and welcome to Just Jesus. And I'm happy that you joined me today. And our goal always is going to be to help you have a rich relationship with Jesus Christ in this life, and then on into glory one day, forever and ever. Lost sheep welcome here is an awesome sign. It's kind of the claim to fame at Walnut Hill Church of Christ, that we minister to and try to help serve people and help them in their relationship with God, no matter where they've been. God's interested in today, where they are and where they're headed in the future. Kind of like the great saying, nobody can go back and have a new beginning, but everyone can start today and have a new ending. We want you to come and be with us at Walnut Hill. Welcome to Just Jesus. Today, I want to share with you one of my favorite passages in the New Testament in the book of Colossians. Colossians chapter 3, verses 1 through 4. We'll have our brother and friend Houston read this passage, and then we'll jump in and take a closer look at it.
Therefore, if you have been raised up with Christ, keep seeking the things above, where Christ is, seated at the right hand of God. Set your mind on the things above, not on the things that are on earth.
Hello and welcome to Just Jesus. I love that sign, the bottom of the barrel. When you're at the bottom of the barrel, there's only one way to look, that's up. Many times when people's lives are crumbling around them, whether it be due to chemicals or financial problems or personal issues of various sorts, mental problems, whatever it is, when you hit the bottom of the barrel, the only place to look is really look up. And all of us need God. Sometimes people don't come to God because they don't hit the bottom of the barrel. And I hope that if you're at the bottom of the barrel, I want you to contact me. And today we're going to talk about a guy that's at the bottom of the barrel in Luke chapter 18. I look forward to sharing that with you on Just Jesus. I want to share with you today a story about a great young man named Chumnan. I met Chumnan in 2012 in Cambodia, where we have a mission work there, and I've been over there many, many times now. Welcome to Just Jesus, where my desire is always going to be to help people have a rich relationship with the Lord in this life and on into eternity. And so I want to encourage you in closing today, spend time outside, look around, and allow what God has put on display for you to help you get closer to God, get closer to Jesus. Thank you so much for joining me today. I look forward to hearing from you. If you have any questions or want to visit some, I would be delighted. Have a great day close to the Lord. Well, that's our goal. Our goal is we want God to use us, our entire church family, to help people have a rich relationship with Jesus in this life and then on into eternity. On Easter Sunday, I'm going to entitle the lesson, The Resurrection Changes Everything. And that hopefully will hit at the heartstrings of all of us, but we also want people in the community to come and be with us. So next Sunday, we need the help of those who are willing and able. We're just going to do a barrage 30 to 60 minutes of everyone who is able and wanting to do this to just stick on the front doors of people throughout the area, and we'll have maps, and you just do one street up and one street back and then go eat lunch. And want to invite you. I think that as a result, there's somebodies, there'll be people who will come on Easter Sunday with those flyers on the doors. And so we're just going to stick them on the door and just keep rolling and cover as much territory as we can. Each group that goes out, you can go out as a family, or 3 or 4 of you guys and gals team up and kind of hit an area. But there's a sign-up sheet in the foyer on the table. You can sign up, so we try to get a head count. But that doesn't mean that we won't contact you this week anyway and see if we can interest you in helping us do that next week. and then we'll launch the YouTube channel, but also in those bags there's devotionals that with scriptures and songs and stories connected that you can hand out. People will take them and hopefully they'll read it, they'll listen to the song, put their phone over the QR code and listen to the song. They'll close the book, put it off to the side, and someone else in their family will read it, or they'll have it at work or whatever, and that it passes around. And as a result, we need to be praying like crazy that God sends us more and more people that we can truly be useful to Him as a vehicle to help people get from here to heaven. So, all righty then, we're on to 2 Kings chapter 7. The setting, in the Old Testament, David is the greatest king that Israel ever had. He ruled around 1000 BC for 40 years, and then Solomon, his son, the dynasty begins, and Solomon takes over as king and builds the massive temple, and he reigns for 40 years, more or less, and then Rehoboam, the son of Solomon, becomes king, but he doesn't listen to the wisdom of the elders and wants to increase taxes, and the kingdom divides, and Rehoboam has the area of Judah and Benjamin, and Jeroboam takes off, leads this revolt against them, and the area of Israel divides into two kingdoms. And so the southern part of the kingdom is called Judah, where Jerusalem is, and then the other 10 tribes, they're more up north, they retain the name Israel. So when you're reading the Old Testament, sometimes you have to watch when you get into the divided kingdom. When it's talking about Israel, it's not talking about the whole nation. It'd be talking about just the northern parts. So you just have to pay attention a little bit. So a general overview of where we are this morning is about 150 years after David, Jehoram ends up becoming the king. Elisha is the prophet, not Elijah, but Elisha. And Jehoram is the son of Ahab and Jezebel, so that's kind of gives you a little bit of an idea where he was. If you're the son of Ahab and Jezebel, you probably got some issues as you're growing up. You don't have many children today being named Jezebel for a reason. I have never known one, and I hope I don't ever. But the big event is that at this time, Aram or Syria has besieged the city of Samaria, the capital of the northern area. And they've soldiers all around, nobody in, nobody out. And they're going to starve them out, starve them into submission, into surrender. And the starvation is so bad that people have resorted to cannibalism that I don't want to go into this morning. But if you have, it'd be good to read chapter 6 of 2 Kings. I think it would be beneficial to you. What I want to do is I want to focus our attention on four lepers. Whew, that'd be a switch. 4 lepers sitting outside the city gate, and they're starving themselves and suffering greatly. And it sounds strange, but we can learn some things from 4 starving lepers. And if I say elder again, somebody do something to me. No wonder I got to go to Walgreens to get prescriptions. 2 Kings chapter 3, let's read this passage together, starting at verse 3. Now there were 4 leprous men at the entrance of the gate, and they said to one another, "Why do we sit here until we die? If we say we will enter the city, then the famine is in the city, and we shall die there. And if we sit here, we die also. Now therefore come, let us go over to the camp of the Arameans. If they spare us, we shall live. And if they kill us, we shall but die." And they arose at twilight to go to the camp of the Arameans. When they came to the outskirts of the camp of the Arameans, behold, there was no one there. For the Lord had caused the army of the Arameans to hear a sound of chariots and a sound of horses, even the sound of a great army, so that they said to one another, "Behold, the king of Israel has hired against us the kings of the Hittites and the kings of the Egyptians to come upon us." Therefore they arose and fled in the twilight and left their tents and their horses and their donkeys, even the camp just as it was, and fled for their life. When these lepers came to the outskirts of the camp, they entered one tent and ate and drank, carried from there silver and gold and cloths and clothes, and went and hid them. And they returned and entered another tent and carried them from there also. And they went and hid them. Then they said to one another, we are not doing right. This is a day of good news, but we are keeping silent. If we wait until morning light, punishment will overtake us. Now therefore come, let us go and tell the king's household. I want to have our lesson this morning revolve around two sayings or statements. The first one is, beggars telling other beggars where to get the bread. Our motto, my motto, always for outreach has always been, I'm just a beggar telling other beggars where to get the bread. That's how I see myself. I hope you see yourself the same way as well, that we are poor in spirit. Blessed are the poor in spirit. They shall receive the kingdom of heaven. The poor in spirit means I am nothing without God. I need God in my life. Jesus is the bread of life, and I need Him, and I am low. I am a sinner. I need to be redeemed. And so we are beggars when we go out to others. We're just beggars telling other beggars where to get the bread. We're not better than anybody else. You just think in 2 Kings 7, God uses 4 low-life begging lepers to deliver good news. Who'd have thunk that would happen, Lepers are considered to be unclean, therefore they cannot enter into the gates, into the city. They have to sit outside the gates, and they have no ability, no resources of their own. They have to depend on begging in order to have anything to eat. So here they sit at the gate begging, but there's nobody going in, nobody going out. Everybody's stuck in the city because the city's under siege. And there could be not anyone less qualified to bring good news to the king. But that's the way God does things. God has always, throughout the Old Testament and the New Testament, God uses seemingly insignificant people to accomplish great things. And you look at when He chose the 12 apostles. He didn't go and get all the big religious leaders, the Pharisees and the Sadducees and so on, and call them to be His apostles. Instead, He gets, fishermen, Peter and Andrew, James and John. He gets a low-life tax collector that everybody hated, Matthew, to serve as one of the apostles. He even gets a violent man named Saul of Tarsus, who later is also, his name comes out more as the Apostle Paul, that he has both names, but he begins to be called Paul in chapter 13, verse 9 of Acts. And God will use redeemed sinners like you and me to carry the message to a lost and dying world, and especially in this area of the city, and also people that we know that are family members and so on. And after all, who's more qualified to bring good news to people than those who have experienced the good news in their own lives? It's like somebody who's gone through some terrible issues in their life, and now things are improving. They're really qualified to be able to address others. Paul writes this in 1 Timothy chapter 1, verse 15. It's a trustworthy statement deserving full acceptance, that Christ Jesus came into the world to save sinners, among whom I am foremost. Paul never forgot that. Paul's perhaps the greatest evangelist ever. He's out there to the Gentiles preaching the good news of the kingdom. But Paul would always say, I don't even deserve to be called an apostle. I persecuted the church of God. But it's by the grace of God that I am what I am, he says in chapter 15, 1 Corinthians. And we should live like that. We should think like that. That I'm a sinner who's been redeemed, so I'm just a beggar telling other beggars where to get the bread. I'm not better than anybody else. If that happens, we'll never be attractive. The message will never be attractive unless we identify with the fact that we are sinners who have been redeemed by the blood of the Lamb, and somebody cared enough about us to share the good news of Jesus with us, and we need to do the same. The old saying is, but for the grace of God, there go I. And what that means is, if somebody hadn't helped me, if God hadn't helped me, if God hadn't knocked on the door of my heart, and if I hadn't responded, and if God hadn't sent someone to help me, where would I be? I'd be right out there. I can speak from personal experience. That's exactly where I would be. I found out 2 years ago, maybe 3 now, Pete Newtalk was the missionary up in Minnesota. There were 2, Willis and Pete. And Don and Kathy, this couple that we were studying with, I was not a very good candidate, apparently. But at one point, Pete told Don and Kathy. The missionary tells the couple studying with us, you know you're wasting your time with that Meyerhofer, which I got a kick out of. I mean, I love Pete. Pete and I are great friends. He was right. I was not a good candidate. But I have never forgotten 40 years ago where I was, that I want God to use me to help other people like me to hear the good news about Jesus Christ. And so if we see ourselves as sinners who have been redeemed, then we're spiritually sensitive that God is so good to me. What am I going to do? Keep it to myself? No, I need to be a beggar and tell other beggars where to get the bread, and pray for God to open doors for us to share Jesus with others. So in that episode there, that event, I don't know who you identify with. Do you identify with Elisha the prophet, or the king's representative, or the king himself? Hopefully, we all identify with the lepers who have been blessed, and then they share the good news with others. When we go into the remote villages of Cambodia, which we don't do any work in the city, all of our work is in the remote villages, usually no electricity and so on, the extremely poor people. And when we pull in that bus, it always brings tears to my eyes. You look at the people, there'll be a sea of people waiting for us because they don't have any medical health care in these villages. And they see these doctors and nurses and dentists, and then there's preachers that come along and so on, and we teach people. And they just stare at that bus as it comes in. They're just looking, watching, and people start pouring out of the bus. And you think, well, it would make you feel proud, how proud you are to be an American, and that you don't have to dress like that. No, it takes you the other way. It makes you feel kind of ashamed and just humbles you. And the thought that always comes to my mind is, who am I that God would honor me by letting me go share the good news with these people? It's an unbelievable honor. I tell people, if I had the opportunity to speak at a big seminar or a conference or summit at Abilene or out at Pepperdine, their lectures and so on, or the conflicting date would be you need to go to Cambodia to the villages, zero chance I would go to those places. I would go right to the villages. Much rather be in the villages sharing Jesus with the lost that are hunger, they're beggars needing salvation. And so the reality is, that's how I feel about being a preacher. That's how I feel about being in Dallas. We're a mission field in the middle of the Dallas. I don't care what other churches do that don't see themselves as mission churches. We're a mission work. We want God to use us so that we can save the lost. And I hope all of us are the same way, that we say, I'm a beggar. I just want to invite other beggars to come and get the bread and share what I have with others rather than hiding it to myself. Connected to that is this statement: with blessings comes responsibility. So you see in chapter 7, in verses 3 and 4, they say the 4 leprous men at the entrance of the gate, they say, what do we sit here for? We say we'll enter the city. They're not eating in there either. And if we stay out here, we're going to starve to death. We'll just go over to the camp of the Arameans, because you know what? We're going to die anyway. The worst thing they can do is kill us, and we're already going to die. So maybe we'll get lucky, So we have 3 choices. We can stay here, we can go inside of our own city, or we can go to the camp of the Arameans. Those are our 3 choices. So they make the decision, let's go to the camp of the Arameans. And God intervenes. God intervenes and causes this sound. So they head to the Aramean camp. They get there. Everybody's gone. Everything is there. All their possessions, the horses, the donkeys, the clothing, the food, everything, money, everything is there. And so when they head there, the Lord causes great noise. And so the lepers think, man, we got ourselves a field day. This is amazing. They started eating and drinking and taking stuff, carrying it off, hiding it. And it's about time that we get some luck here. We get some things going in our direction. And so the Arameans think, well, the Hittites are coming from the north. The king of Israel has hired the Egyptians, the king up there, and they're coming from the north, and the Egyptians are coming from the south. I think because the horses and so on are left there, I think they say, we got to get out of here quietly. And I think they just sneak out, low line and crawling out and running as fast as they can. They take a horse, someone's going to hear them. They just leave everything there. And the lepers have their day for a change. But then their full stomachs drop. And in verse 9, they say to one another, we're not doing right. We're not doing right. This is a day of good news, but we're keeping silent. If we wait until morning light, punishment will overtake us. Now, therefore, let us go tell the king. Of course, the king doesn't believe it at first and so on, but eventually, because who's going to believe these lepers, you know? We're not doing right. That same feeling of responsibility that they had to go back and share what they have with others. I love the statement, we're not doing right. It's not right. It's not right for us to sit on this good news that we have and not tell others, they say. Well, we know our fellow Samaritans are hurting, and we have a stewardship because we have been blessed. I tell you, and you know, because I've talked about it too much probably, but Sacom lived and survived through the Holocaust that was in Cambodia from 1975 to 1979. Many of his family were tortured, raped, murdered, and so on. Sacom himself was kicked into a killing field hole, a mass grave that he helped dig because they stood there at gunpoint at him. I one time asked him, I'm careful, I don't always know how far I want to press it because it can really just cause him to start crying. But I asked him, if you know they're going to kill you anyway, why would you dig? Why didn't you just say, just go ahead and kill me? He said, because when you got a gun at your head and they tell you dig or die, you just don't know. Maybe at 1 second later something will happen, and maybe I won't die. And at the end of the war, when he was on the bank of a river with the other 30 prisoners that were left, there were over 300 of them. He was one of 30 that wasn't killed or didn't die of starvation or disease. They had him tied and standing on the riverbank with AK-47s, and they were going to mow him down and then leave the Buddhist temple, which they turned into a prison. And Russian MiGs flew overhead, and before they fired the shots to kill all these prisoners, they dropped their gun, they took off and just left them there. So Sacom is standing there on the river bank with 29 other people, and then he just went home because he wasn't that far, half a day's walk to go back to where he was from. So, but he said at that time, I didn't know if they were going to, maybe something would happen. If you ask Sacom, how long was the Holocaust there in Cambodia? He won't say 1975 to 1979. He'll say 3 years, 8 months, 20 days. He knows exactly how long it was. And I try to get Cambodians to go with me on these mission trips that I go on. I've never had any luck yet. I'm waiting for them to come. One guy said, well, what's the weather like there in August? I said, man, you grew up there. What do you mean? You're a refugee. You grew up in Cambodia. You would know. And so Sacom not only goes on mission trips, he moved back there and lives there permanently and comes back and forth to the U.S., to visit family, and then visits on FaceTime and Zoom and so on. He visits with his family and then comes back off and on. But do you know what Bible passage it is that changed Sacom's life? Because he said, I hid in the United States for 29 years, as a Christian, knowing that my fellow Cambodians didn't know about Jesus and were poor and needed medical care. Do you know what passage it was that changed his life? This passage right here. We're not doing right. I'm not doing right. My people are hurting in Cambodia, and I'm just leaving them there while I live in the U.S. with 2 houses, 2 or 3 vehicles, a nice business, and I'm living high on the hog, and my fellow Cambodians are living without Jesus Christ in their lives. He could not sit there and not do nothing. And I told him, man, you got to go back. First year that I went, I could not believe the open hearts to hear about Jesus. And I said, you got to move back over. You got to go. And so he didn't think we'd get support. Next thing you know, he had all the support. So then he's got to make a decision. He said, you can't leave me there alone, brother. I'm not a preacher. And that's how I got reeled into it, along with Herman. And a bunch of us got reeled into to helping with the mission work there, which is couldn't be a greater honor from God. But Secombe said, I'm not doing right. I have a burden on my heart, and I have responsibility to share the good news with other people. That sense of humility that permeated in Secombe's heart, it's in the heart of the 4 lepers. It's in my heart. And deep down, it's in everybody's heart that's been saved. We have it there, but we cover it up with things sometimes. Paul says, woe is me if I don't preach the gospel. In 1 Corinthians chapter 9, when he looks at his apostleship, and he doesn't take anything from the Corinthians because he doesn't want them to claim that he's in ministry for money. And Sutter said, I'd rather starve to death than have you make my boast an empty one. And so he says this in 1 Corinthians 9, verse 16 and 17. For if I preach the gospel, I have nothing to boast of, for I'm under compulsion. For woe is me if I do not preach the gospel. If I do this voluntarily, I have a reward, but if against my will, I have a stewardship entrusted to me. And what's the stewardship, Paul? Because God saved me, a sinner, and therefore I feel like I have a responsibility and a stewardship from God. Someone cared enough about you and me to share the good news about Jesus Christ, his death, burial, resurrection, salvation, forgiveness of sins, a relationship with God now, eternal life through this life and on into glory. And for me, anytime I think about something of a blessing that I have from God, or insight in the Scripture that I have about my relationship with God, how blessed I am, the very next thought is I have to share this. And so I am blessed to have be able to preach, and I'm honored and thankful that you put up with me. But I'm going to tell somebody about what God has done for me. And all of us need to have that sense of stewardship and responsibility that I have to share the good news of Jesus. And the Just Jesus materials you can use to hand out. It's easy to share them with people. And we're going to make extra booklets. We're going to have special books that we put out at Easter that revolve around the resurrection in heaven, and the 3 or 4 devotionals. And that people, it's another touch. They visit, and then they go home, and they have that booklet, and the next day they read that devotional, and the next day they read another one, listen to a song. That may generate interest in them. You know what? That maybe this church is really different. We are different. We have people that come here that tell us, this church is different. You're not into entertainment. You're not into all the bells and whistles. You're into Jesus. And I appreciate that. And we have people here, if I ask for a show of hands, it'd be amazing the number of people that say that very thing. That this is not a social club. We're more like a rehab center. That we're all trying to keep following Jesus from here to heaven. And we're all beggars telling other beggars where to get the bread. And now that we have eaten, so to speak, we need to share that good news with others. And hopefully you'll join us next Sunday. We need to make more maps this week by the look on your faces. I'm confident it's just going to be up one block, down another. Nobody's going to be out for more than 60 minutes, maybe 30 minutes to go up one street, tape on the door, just go to the next place, tape on the door. And people will get those. It's an invitation for Easter Sunday, which is 2 weeks from now, so we do it a week before. And then the other side of it is the week following that, we're going to have a family fun day with a bounce house and cornhole bean bags that you'll lose at if you challenge me, and face painting for the children and so on, and different things that they'll do. It'll be a great church family activity, but we want our community to be part of it as well. And so I hope that you will say, you know what? I'm a beggar telling other beggars where to get the bread, and I have a responsibility here, and with the blessings I have comes responsibility, and I want God to use me. I want to hand these things out at work. We'll have extra items that you can take that you can hand out at work or to a friend or a neighbor or a family member, that where we really get cranked up and get busy letting God use us to help save souls. That's what we're about. And then help those who are saved grow up in their faith all the way from here to heaven. This morning as we close, you may be here with a desire to be born again. the death, burial, resurrection of Jesus is in your heart, on your mind, this is a great day to be buried with Christ and raised up to a new life, or maybe we can pray for you in some way.